truly live in an extraordinary, awe-inspiring world. From the vast cosmos to the complexity of the tiniest forms of matter, God's design is truly beautiful. I see evidence of Him in many ways, whether it be straightforward, seeing the awesome design of His world, or reading of His magnificent nature in the Bible, or seeing parallels of God in our world through symbolism and metaphors, which is actually the theme of these videos. So, I'd like to talk about this, or rather what it represents, pi.
Pie.
No, not pie, pi. The circle is a marvelous shape.
Love is a circle.
Contained within it is a very important mathematical principle. Now, remember back in grade school
What a good book.
when you first had to find the circumference and area of a circle? What did you use in that equation? That's right, pi. And 3.14 is usually the numbers used when calculating math problems that concern pi. Pi times diameter and pi r squared may bring back some memories. But what is pi? Well, it's the ratio of a circle's circumference to that of the diameter. The circumference being the distance around the circle, and the diameter being the distance from one end of the circle to the other, going through the center. Now, a ratio is the amount of one thing compared to another. If you look at some maps, often a scale is used when determining distance. 1 inch on paper could stand for 3 miles in real life. So, the ratio is 1 to 3, or 1/3 as a fraction. So, measuring 2 inches on the map is equivalent to 6 miles, and so on. Every single circle has the same ratio of its circumference to the diameter. Of course, pi is that ratio, and we can use it to calculate the circumference, area, volume of all manner of circular shapes. 3.1415926, those are just a few of the digits contained in pi. As far as we know, pi goes on forever. Forever. There is a website I've seen that gives the first 1,000,000 digits of pi. And if you think that's hard to imagine, it's quite possible that if there were 1,000,000 websites, each with 1,000,000 different digits of pi, we still wouldn't see the end of it. So, historians don't know who first started doing experiments with the circle's circumference and the diameter, but they do know that thousands of years ago, the Egyptians and the Babylonians were doing their own calculations with pi. So the concept has been around for quite some time. The name pi comes from the Greek letter of the same name given to this legendary ratio in the early 18th century. Okay, so stifle those yawns and check out these metaphors. So, pi is irrational. It keeps on going and going. It's hard for our minds to grasp a set of eternal numbers. What's more awesome and mind-blowing than that? An all-powerful, all-knowing, perfect God. And although pi has a beginning with no foreseeable end, we believe that God has no beginning or end. Yes, and sometimes it hurts the brain trying to grasp that idea. And although math concepts can seem lifeless and detached at times, God is anything but distant. The great being who created the cosmos and confuddles the mind trying to comprehend is waiting to talk to us, to teach us things, to commune with us. Now, if you want to talk about the idea of limitlessness, go no further than God's limitless knowledge and wisdom. Our lives are full of problems and shortcomings. We don't always know what the future holds. Why would I try to rely on only myself when the one who created me is waiting to help me out? Now, of course, God expects us to make the right choices in life. He even gave us a guidebook. And with all God's vast power, sometimes He chooses to help people through other people. That's why I try to live my life not just for myself, but for other people as well. Sometimes putting other people first is the best choice I can make. it can make a world of a difference in someone else's life. Now, before I mentioned God's vast limitlessness, but don't get me wrong, this metaphor isn't trying to paint God as some genie who's there to give us whatever we want. God has limitless wisdom to know what is good for us and what might not be good for us. I've heard some people say that we might not be seeing our prayers answered because we're not asking for the right thing. And whatever your belief is on that idea, it's definitely food for thought. That's why I try to pray that God leads me in the right direction. Because, let's face it, the God who created all time and space definitely knows what's best for me. And on another note, remember when I mentioned ratios? Well, in a way, I believe that God sees us as ratios of Him. Although, far be it from me to label God as any certain number. He'd be like infinity over infinity. But anyways, the Bible talks about God creating us in His own image. Whatever your own philosophical take on that bit of information, regardless, I think we can all agree that God sees us as part of His family. But, as I've said in another video, God expects a two-way street. We can only truly be part of His family if we submit to Him as our Father, as our King. So, whenever you see the number pi, or even a circle, think of our benevolent Creator, a vast, eternal being who's ready to meet every single one of us on a personal level.
Love is a circle round and it goes up and it goes down. Love is inside us trying to get out, whirling and twirling about. Just like forever, it goes forever. Yay!
Oh. 3.1415. Whoa.
Okay, the pie! Oh, sorry. What? Oh, there's one.